Man, what is happening, my YouTube family? It is your boy B New coming at y'all this morning. Just fresh off a round of games in the NBA last night, so we had quite a few games going on. But one of the main games I want to focus on that most of you probably saw last night was the Los Angeles Clippers against the Dallas Mavericks. So as you can see, and this is what I keep saying, even though I said the Clippers are on a higher tier as far as the Western Conference is concerned, as far as being on the top tier with the Lakers, that's only if they play the way that they are capable of playing. And last night they most certainly did not, and they just came out sloppy from the get-go. And I'm not trying to take away anything from Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks and Chris Porzingis or anybody else, because the Dallas Mavericks definitely have a team that can compete with almost any other team in the league. But when I say tiers and I try to separate the teams within the conferences, this is based off of how you going to perform in the playoffs and how deep that you can actually make it in the playoffs. Because in any given night in the NBA, any team is capable of winning. So, I mean, just from the game last night, you can see that, I mean, even LeBron without Anthony Davis would be capable, I think, of beating this Clippers team or that Dallas team or almost any other team for that matter, because they just don't get the props that they deserve. LeBron doesn't anyway, because everybody wants to say, oh, what's his record without Anthony Davis? But if you look at LeBron's record when he has Dennis Schroeder and no Anthony Davis, then the record, I want to say, is like 6-2. It's a lot better. So you can't just say, oh, well, look at the, especially in the MVP conversation, well, look at LeBron's record without Anthony Davis, but you're not taking everything into consideration. You got to say, look at this record without Anthony Davis and without Marcus Gasol and without Dennis Schroeder, because some of those games he was without the starting center and without starting point guard and without your starting power forward. So how successful do you want a team to be? So, I mean, with the Clippers playing the way they are, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, like I said in the previous video, if they were to actually lose, in a prior round before even making to the Western Conference Finals to face the Los Angeles Lakers. I could very much see a team like the Portland Trail Blazers or the Denver Nuggets or even the Utah Jazz disposing of the Clippers at the end of the day. I don't think that Dallas or Memphis or Golden State or any of the lower seeded teams would be able to beat them. But I do think that the other teams I just mentioned would have a shot. But ultimately, I still would pick the Clippers over any of those teams in a series because of what they're able to do on both ends of the floor, especially when you got somebody like Kawhi Leonard, who's capable of being a lockdown defender. And if Paul George can be consistent, then the Clippers could be very successful. But that's the problem. Paul George is never really consistent, and that's the problem with the Los Angeles Clippers. But speaking of teams that's been very consistent, let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets for a minute, because the Brooklyn Nets did their thing again last night, and that was still without the services of Kevin Durant, and last night without Kyrie Irving. So Kevin Durant has missed several weeks. So is that starting to become alarming to Brooklyn Nets fans and to coaches and players alike? Because you still have to mesh this team together, and when you add him back to the starting lineup, that's going to send other players to the bench, and that's going to definitely mess with their rotation. But when you have talent such as Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden, pretty much everybody is starting to pick them, to even win the finals. And you even got NBA experts like, Tim Legler, who has a lot of knowledge of the game, who just says that this juggernaut is just going to be too much for anybody to handle. And, I'm starting to believe that too, especially in the Eastern Conference. I really don't think anybody will be able to beat them. I think maybe Miami could get them a run for the money, but maybe Philly, if fully healthy, could give them a run for the money. But at the end of the day, if I'm a betting man, and I would put my money on Brooklyn to come out of the East. Now, as far as them matching up with the Lakers, with a fully healthy AD and Montrezl playing at a high level, and with LeBron playing at a high level, and KCP can hit his shots consistently, then I just feel like the Lakers would be too much defensively for Brooklyn to beat. So at this point, I'm pretty much saying that the Lakers and Brooklyn are the top 2 teams in the league. And James Harden, I mean, he just put on a show. And I really honestly believe you have to put James Harden's name in the MVP conversation, especially after what he did last night, dropping 40 points and I want to say 10 assists. I mean, James Harden is definitely doing this thing. And since he showed up at Brooklyn, which I'm not saying he should take the MVP candidacy away from LeBron James, because LeBron James is doing a lot more with less. But in any event, when Kyrie or Kevin Durant has been absent, James Harden did his thing. So if you look at a common opponent like the Indiana Pacers, it was almost the same thing. When LeBron had to carry the load the other night, without AD and play the Pacers, the Pacers hung with them for 3 quarters until the Lakers were able to pull away in the 4th quarter. And that was the same thing that happened again last night when Brooklyn played the Indiana Pacers, because the Pacers was really up through the most of the game, all the way through the 3rd quarter. But in the 4th quarter, James Harden just started doing his thing as usual, and it was pretty much unstoppable. So you got to start looking at James Harden as being one of the great forces in the NBA and in the MVP conversation. And if you really think about it, Harden is one of the best scorers in the NBA right now, if not the best. So when you're talking about pure scoring, when you got, Kevin Durant, who's been a scoring champion, and a James Harden, who's been a scoring champion, and both of them are both MVPs of the league on the same team, then that's something that you're really going to have to reckon with in one way or the other. So let's keep that in mind. And another team that's been looking really good as of late, of course, is the Miami Heat, moving all the way up into the 4th seed now that they're becoming fully healthy and, due to COVID tracing and things of that nature, to now where they're all together at once. So the Miami Heat been looking real good, but the Miami Heat took on the Memphis Grizzlies yesterday. And like I keep telling people, the Memphis Grizzlies is going to be a tough out for anybody, because on any given night, they are going to play very hard. They play really good grit and grind defense, as they always have, because that's the culture of the city. When you're from the north and you put your thumbs up, that's just how it is when you play for the Beale Street Blue. So, during that game, Miami went on a run, and Jimmy Buckets came to life. But in the 3rd quarter is when the Grizzlies, and I keep telling everybody, Dylan Brooks has that defense. He plays lockdown defense on the other end of the court, and he does give you some offense. And when you got players like Ja Morant, who performed excellent last night, and I don't know if anybody saw it, but Ja Morant, and that's his 2nd time hitting a game-winning shot with under 2 seconds left, so he does have that clutch gene. But it really surprised me that Jimmy Buckets, and Jimmy Buckets is a great defender, allowed Ja Morant to get past him and take it almost basically coast to coast for the game-winning layup. So I don't know if anybody saw that, but please go check it out. Ja Morant was able to go coast to coast all the way on Jimmy Butler and finish with the layup and win the game. And that reminded me of an old school, actually like a 90s or early 2000 game, because the defense was tremendous by both teams. And I want to say the final score ended up being like 89-85. So when was the last time you saw an NBA game in the 80s and not even make it to the 90s? That lets you know that both teams were playing very, very aggressive defense. And, I mean, Miami did miss a couple open threes down the stretch where Tyler Hero was just basically wide open. He blew it where they could have won. But, you win some and you lose some. Every shot is not going to go down. So at the end of the day, Memphis Grizzlies pulled away. So they're, it's not like they have to get that 8th seed. If they can get that 7th to 10th seed and they had that play-in game, then they're going to be looking real nice. And another team that's lurking down there around the bottom of the 7th through 10th seed in the Western Conference is the Golden State Warriors. And of course, the Golden State Warriors gave the Golden State, another team that's lingering down in the bottom of the standings also is the Golden State Warriors. And the Golden State Warriors gave Houston their 17th loss in a row last night. But the Golden State Warriors also took a huge loss last night. Even though they won, they lost because Steph Curry had an awkward fall as he was going out of bounds, and he landed on his tailbone. And I'm expecting, especially with a tailbone bruise, I'm expecting that injury to probably keep him out for at least another week to 2 weeks. So who knows? Especially without Klay Thompson, it's going to be very hard on the Golden State Warriors to keep their head above water. One good thing about it is, though, the Golden State Warriors are getting into a part of their schedule which is not the strongest part of their schedule. So look for Golden State to try to do whatever they can to hover over 500 if they can, so they can still have a chance to make it to the playoffs. But this could be very detrimental, because then you have teams like the New Orleans Pelicans, the Memphis Grizzlies, and some of these lower teams like Dallas, who are creeping up and gonna take that spot. So if Golden State loses 4 or 5 games in a row, it could be very detrimental to their season. Then they might have to fight like hell just to get into that 10th or 9th spot so they can be in that play-in. So I'm not sure if everybody knows that, they tried that in the bubble last year, but that's now become a staple of the NBA. That's going to be something new that they're doing every year, to have a play-in tournament for the 7th through the 10th seed to see who is going to get that 8th spot, which I think is a pretty good idea, because it gives these bottom teams something to play for. And I mean, who knows, if they get hot just by getting a few games under their belt and build some confidence, they may get those number 1 seeds a run for their money. But that doesn't typically happen. It has happened a couple of times in the past, but not too many times in the NBA that an 8th seed beats a 1 seed, because that's the difference between the NBA and the NFL, that you actually have series. And then, back in my time in the 80s and 90s, before the late 90s, I can't remember when they exactly enacted the rule, but it used to be just a 5-game series in the first round, so best 3 out of 5. So, I mean, I'm kind of glad they got rid of that, because you just never know. A team get hot, and I mean, they up 2-1, and then you get nervous. You just never know. That lower team might mess around and win that game. And if all it takes to win is 3 games in the series, then who knows? The team that catch lightning in the bottle and eliminate one of those higher seeded teams. And I believe that's what was happening in the NBA. So they didn't want to lose ratings by getting rid of those top seeded teams, and seeing some fluke team make it, to the higher rounds of the playoffs. So, just to sum it all up, yesterday it was a lot of games in the NBA yesterday, and just to sum it all up, the Miami Heat took a fall last night, but I expect them to bounce back and still to be in contention, of course, in the Eastern Conference. The Memphis Grizzlies, of course, won on Ja Morant's shot. Another game that went on last night was the Philadelphia 76ers taking on the Milwaukee Bucks, which was a pretty interesting game. And Ben Simmons took on the challenge of guarding Giannis, which was a great task to him. And he did a decent job for the most part, but Giannis started getting his in the 4th quarter to pretty much where he was unstoppable. And once he started rolling downhill, it's going to be pretty much hard to contain him. And Giannis, I want to say they were down by as much as 14 or 15 points to Philly, and this was without Joel Embiid, so that lets you know how good of a team Philadelphia is. But Giannis was able to do what he had to do to win. So just look for the Milwaukee Bucks. They're trying to make some noise and come together as a team, but they can show some inconsistencies too. But I think because they're trying to do a lot of different things with their rotations and figure it out because of the new players they have, especially with the trade that they made yesterday, it's going to be very interesting to see how they're going to compete, to see if they can actually take that next step and have success in the playoffs and get further than the first round. So it'll be very interesting to see. Of course, we know the Los Angeles Lakers return to action tonight. And I want to say Marc Gasol will be returning. So all the people who saying Marc Gasol has not been, the Lakers been playing a lot better without him. Well, the majority of the players the Lakers been playing good has been with Montrez and the bench unit. So let's just see what Marc Gasol can do in the starting lineup. He might have to shake off a little bit of rust, but I honestly believe that the Lakers are so good that really at the center position, they only need a big body that can take up space when need be on the defensive end, and somebody that has a high IQ and can run a high pick and roll with LeBron James. So Jones has been playing real good as of late. I know they're showing some confidence in him. So we'll see if Marc Gasol is indeed available tonight, if he will get the start or not. Maybe I'll come to you all with some pregame analysis. We shall see. But that was just my rundown of everything that happened in the NBA yesterday. So as you all know, Subscribe to the channel. Like, share, and subscribe. And as always, right on to the real, and much love to the haters. I'm out.